Hey, what's up, Rose? What's up, cake and ice cream? What is up? 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 How are y'all doing? How? What's up? What's up? Ah! What is up, everybody? Hi, 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 hi. It's another beautiful day. Oh my god. Another beautiful day, another opportunity to live life, and instead we're turning on our camera and talking on the internet. Okay. Hey! 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 How are you? How are you? Hey! Hey! How are you? Oh my god. I'm good. Rebecca, what the hell? Why are you so extra today? I don't know. Why shouldn't I be? Image is everything. All right, all right, all right, all right. What is up? You got the music going? We got all this going and everything. Let's get this started. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another exciting day. I just have some things on my mind I want to talk about. It's really good, usually good to get these things off your chest and talk about the stuff. What am I going to do? That's what we're going to do. Is we're going to talk about what we're going to do. Okay? And then we're going to do it. And then which is something that we're already doing. We're already doing it. That's kind of the point, right? It's kind of the point. For some reason, I keep thinking that, like, I'm not doing anything. I'm like, well, like, what the hell? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you? How do you not realize what you're doing? Like, what the fuck? Like, god damn it, Rebecca, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why do you think that you're doing nothing? Like, what the fuck? Like, how can you be so delusional to think that you're not, like, being the change that you're seeking? Like, I don't understand sometimes, right? Like, I don't understand, like, how I don't see these things that it seems like people all around me see, and I can't seem to see. You know, the people I work with, you know, like my therapist and my case manager and all my doctors and, like, literally, like, my closest friends, like people I haven't even met sometimes, or just, like, kind of, like, interactions out in the wild. Like, people literally see me as, like, this just, like, well, I mean, I guess they mostly just see me as just some random chick. But, like, you know, which, you know, is really actually, like, that's actually kind of the thing, is, like, all the transitioning stuff is so that I could be average, right? Like, I'm not trying to stick out. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Some people like doing this whole, like, larger than life, like, kind of thing. I think I'm larger than life enough. Okay. I think this brain of mine is my version of being, like, extra. Right? Like, the way I conduct myself, the way I talk, like, yeah, I need to fix this chair. Like, I can't afford to replace it, so I gotta fix it so it's not so squeaky. Basically, I think I have to retighten the things and also put some, like, oil or something on it, because it's like, it squeaks like hell. But, like, a pillow helps for the for, you know, not for the squeak, but for the because like, if I sit back, well, first of all, you shouldn't be sitting back on your chair. You should be, like, sitting, like, halfway. And I learned this through music. You should, like, if this is the chair, your butt should be, like, over here towards the end, you know, with your legs, like, off the end, and you shouldn't be all the way back in the chair. I do lean back a lot, and I also do this thing where I'm like not like that, but, like, when I'm, like, watching YouTube and stuff like that, I'll, like, lean back. And I've been leaning back, like, since I was in elementary school. Like, I actually, like, was teachers and stuff were worried that I would, like, fall back and hit my head, but I was like, no. I know what I'm doing. I became an expert at being lazy. Okay. I'm so not lazy that I was good at being lazy. Do you understand? Like, do you see where this comes from? Is that, like, I have so much desire to be the best at what I do that even when I'm trying to, like, be a degenerate, I'm trying to be the best at being a degenerate. Do you understand? like what the fuck? But I think another good question, what are you going to do? I think it's like some people, like, they meet me, especially on the internet, where I'm trying extra hard to look like a degenerate. You know, because the image is everything, right? The good old, oh dear God, I might die, but damn, is this comfy. No, I got really good at it. I knew how to, like, balance it. And also I knew how to fall. So it was like, you know, that's part of, like, when I'm, obviously I don't go out of my way to be, like, dangerous or anything. Like, you know, even, like, you know, I wear, like, a whole bunch of protective gear when I go out to go, like, rollerblading and stuff like that. I'm very aware of, like, trying to protect my body, especially my skull. I'm literally getting facial surgery Not even going to think about if they delay it again. Okay, like, because they've already delayed it twice, and it's supposed to happen in April. Okay, so just like praying, you know, and hoping beyond hope that it's happening. I can't think about the what ifs, you know, like if I think about that, like, you know, the only thing I can control is myself. I can't control the world around me, and there's literally nothing I could do to either make it happen or prevent it or from it not happening. So like literally, like I just have to basically just stay strong, and I'm trying. But you know that, like, you know, image is everything, right? So it's like there's this image of, like, you know, obviously I think I go beyond this world of like streaming and all that. I feel like this is kind of where I landed for now. You know, like 3 years ago when I started streaming, and like, actually no, it was like 3.5 years ago. Yeah, like 3.5 years ago when I started streaming, like in June of 2019, and then leading up to when I just had my mental breakdown and started transitioning, and then integrated that into my content. Because why, you know, if I'm a content creator, I'm going to integrate things that are a part of my life into it, because I'm that kind of content creator. Right? That's kind of my brand. People know me as being somebody who presents herself as like sort of like not like a fake version of me, but more like a more kind of dramatized version of myself, like more like not larger than life, but kind of like that's how I've always been in public since from an early age, you know, because I understood that I was different, and I understood also that people see you differently. And that I understood from a very young age that I couldn't just fly under the radar. That if I was going to be noticed, I was going to be fucking noticed. Do you understand? Like, that's kind of where it came from. Yeah, rollerblading. I really like it. I have inlines, I have quads, and I also have figure ice skates. I want to do figure skating, which is going to start with like actually doing stretches, getting, you know, basically I know where my goal is. I want to do figure skating on ice, and also on specially designed figure inline skates. But also you can do them on quads too. So figure skating is a family of things. It's not unique to any specific, like every single specific type of thing you do is going to have its own unique physics involved. But I mean, it's the same idea. And just like ballet, you know, like doing ballet stretches and strengthening parts of your body so that you can hold different positions, and like, and off ice training, and off skate training, like doing jumps and stuff like that. Stuff that you can do that has a little bit more impact on your ankles and stuff if you do them off of skates. But that's kind of where ballet comes in, is the strengthening, because I do know that there is a kind of Achilles heel, like literally, for skaters, because there's a lot less impact on it. So a lot of skaters have to spend time off ice strengthening their ankles, because if you spend all your time on the ice, you're not doing that. So like running or just doing, you know, the ballet stretches, I think is really good for me, because I'm really good with like non-intensive exercise, like yoga, and stuff like that. Yeah, not quad ice skates, like quad roller skates. Quad ice skates would be kind of crazy. No, I mean, it's all skating. Do you understand? Like sometimes it's on ice. Sometimes, what I was trying to say is special inline skates designed for that are inline roller skates designed for figure skating. Do you understand? Like they're specially like 3-wheeled, like it's specially balanced, like they're bigger wheels, and they're supposed to be, they're designed for finesse and freedom, kind of like the ice, but it's designed for off ice. And they have a front toe stop, and the front toe stop is important for inline skating, because there's a lot of things you can't do without a front stop. You guys have questions. Questions are always welcome here. Just don't be a dick. Don't be a total piece of shit in my chat, and you'll get along with me just fine. Obviously, terms of service. Don't be bigoted in any way. Okay, especially transphobic, but don't be racist, don't be transphobic, don't be homophobic, whatever. And for some reason, not everybody knows what that means. And I think sometimes people tiptoe. I don't want you to tiptoe. I want you to use common sense. Like, obviously, like, would you go into a room of people and like ask a black person, like you know what I mean? Like, what would you ask a person in person, right? And maybe on the internet we're a little bit different here, and I'm a little bit thick, and I'm pretty thick-skinned, actually. Let's be real. Okay, I'm pretty fucking thick-skinned. It's really hard to offend me. So, like, if you have a question about something, just fucking ask it. Don't ask to ask. That's actually a huge thing in the programming world. Hey, what's up, Candy Soda? I have beautiful eyes. Thank you. Preach, preach, preach. Yeah, is that racist? These. You know what? There's this whole like thing about like people like tiptoeing about, this whole like, oh, what can I say and what can't I say? And I think if you're thinking like that, you're already like on the wrong track, because you're thinking like you have to treat people differently. Like they're somehow like you're normal and they're not, right? Like when you start thinking like, oh, how do I talk to a black person about this? Like, just how would you talk to a person like this? And obviously there are things that you should probably take into account based on experience, but some people do not have that experience of listening to someone. And so I think if you don't understand, I think the solution is to listen more. But you can't listen if you don't ask questions. But I think you should just like try to listen first so that you can build up the questions. Trying to work and listen at the same time, multitasking. I mean, part of my streaming content is that I'm very interactive and talk a lot. So don't expect me to, unless I'm gaming, don't expect me to go on autopilot. Because if you need to focus on your work, go do that, and then come back later, because there's going to be a VOD that you can watch. But I mean, if you have questions, always ask the questions, and I try my best to answer them. But I do interact with the chat extremely well. You having how many years? I'm 35. I think that's what you meant, right? I'm guessing English might not be your second language. Sorry if I'm presuming things. Here you go. Here's how it is. You have experience with life, and this is how I've experienced it, is you don't know what you don't know, but then you gather that information and you try to make changes based on that. And I think a lot of times I've met a lot of people, including myself, who take in that information and instead of trying to adjust things are just like, well, okay, I have the information, but here's how I'm going to do it anyway. And sometimes that's really good, and that's a strength I have. And in some applications, that's a huge strength. And you should not waver on that. But in some other applications, especially something that I'm very blind to, like literally with, I don't like saying this in a very like making excuses kind of way, but in a way that I recognize reality, is that I am autistic and I have social blindness. And I need to understand that so I can overcome it. And without putting a name without putting a name to it, and without recognizing the validity of the strength and impact it has on my life, I can't overcome it. So in order to, that's what I've learned in therapy for a lot of things. And that's where DBT comes in, where you look at things objectively and you say, okay, what is this thing? Because you can't just ignore it. You can't just be like, oh, it's okay, I just shouldn't be this way, right? But you have to recognize that there's a reason why you're acting that way or why you're doing that. Okay? And so if you don't say, look at it straight in the eyes and say, I see you. I know who you are. Here's what I'm going to do about it. Right? So if you can't look yourself in the face and say, I know who you are and I know what you're going through, but here's the steps you can take, okay? Like, this is kind of what I've been doing the past couple of years in therapy, is getting my emotions outside of the equation, but then recognizing that those emotions will happen. And saying that they shouldn't happen isn't going to change that. So instead of doing that, DBT is about recognizing that you have these emotions. And then saying, okay, well, now that I know what they are, how do I overcome them. And I don't think it's about overcoming them. It's about working through them in a way that's less damaging to yourself and others than if, than you previously have. Which, sometimes that's really small, sometimes that's really big. I think most times it's really easy for people to think about, oh, this huge problem, like a big giant meltdown, right? Most people think of that, my boss is going on a tirade today. What am I supposed to do? And then you just kind of keep your head down. Maybe you go home and you talk about it later, but then, the next day, next week the boss is going to be okay. He goes on this tirade, or she goes on this tirade every month, or every week or whatever, because we're not meeting quotas. And then you have to ask yourself, if your boss does this on a regular basis and you don't say anything about it, or you don't do anything about it, like get a new job, those are the two options, right? You could either stay in there and say, okay, I have skin in the game, right? You have a boss who's giving you trouble. You have two options. You get a new boss by getting a new job, or you stay there and you do the work that's required, which is going to mean speaking up. And you might get some shit for that. And I don't, I personally, I don't know. I don't know if I'm the worst person or the best person to say this, because I've had so much experience with people giving me shit that I haven't really been able to be successful in the workplace. But I know how to take care of myself because of that. Because I could not put up with this constant bullshit that people put on me. Because I just know I can't handle it. Because I look at it straight in the eye and I say, what is this? Okay, and I ignored it for my whole entire life until I was 31, when I was forced to look at it, because going to therapy is a huge part. I needed surgery letters, surgery approval letters from 3 different licensed professionals. I needed to be, there's a minimum amount of and I'm going well beyond the minimum, but there's a minimum amount of professional, not just diagnoses, but you know what I mean? There's a certain amount of discussions that have to take place with a professional for them to assess that you are mentally able to make decisions that are extremely life-changing, such as gender-confirming surgeries, which are irreversible. So you go to the university? No. I went to a junior college, a community college, for music, back in 2015 to 2018. I was there from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day, except Sunday, because it was closed. The music building was literally closed on Sunday, so I couldn't go there. So I just used that as a rest day, because it's well, you need a day off, okay, in order to take a break and physically recover. And of course, I would manage my time really well during the week. I got really good at it, but I got so good at it that I couldn't handle it anymore. I guess that means I didn't get good at it. I wasn't able to understand that I can't just keep going on like that. I can't just keep going on head, nose to the grindstone, going day in, day out, pushing and pushing and pushing. I wanted to become great, and I still am, and there's still time. But I underestimated the amount of social interactions required in the music industry. I just thought that if I went to college and enough people heard me and saw potential in me, that maybe somebody would step in and help me. But that's not the case. Nobody's going to help you. And so that's what kind of scared me. And then I burned out, because I'm like, why should I put in 12 hours a day at the music building, with I think a total of 3 hours of rehearsal, depending on the day, between 1 to 3 hours of rehearsal for performances, and then 3 hours of dedicated practice, or between 1 to 3 hours. I would manage it based on day to day. I did have a plan, but that plan was flexible enough so that when I wasn't feeling it, I could still get basically the exact same stuff out of it, just not as much. I would have a minimum threshold of I need to get this out of my practice sessions every day. And if I can get more out of it, that's great. But I wanted to get that minimum out of it, like at least like 20 minutes of doing something at the very least. And then 20 minutes of doing another thing, and then 20 minutes of doing the third thing, which was fundamentals, such as, and then, scales and arpeggios, long tone, fundamentals like long tones, scales and arpeggios, just like physical things, like mindset things, and then, 20 minutes of etudes, studies, of just doing very technical stuff. Like really pinpointing like what I needed to improve on. And then 20 minutes of literally working on the performance pieces, like working on, okay, I know from measures 18 to 32, that section there is really messy. So let's focus on that. And then I would look at the most important parts of that and say like, okay, what's the most important part I need to work on? What are the things that are most likely going to go wrong during a live performance on my clarinet or on my saxophone? It's like this, like tenor sax, like it's a bit bigger and heavier, and then clarinet's like, so I was getting ready for university. I was getting ready for the track to go into my master's, of going into the whole performance track, of going into, like trials. Like you basically like you prepare something to be judged by a panel of people, and you do that regularly, and that's part of the improvement process of the college and master's track. Like you go for you get your 4 degree, and then you go on to masters, so that you can, and then you push yourself beyond that. Usually when you're doing that, you're also teaching privately. You're probably auditioning for certain things. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that. It's just like, like doctors, right? They serve residency, like while they're getting their final parts that are like, they do stuff while they're doing their degree. They're actually working in the industry while they're pursuing their education at a certain point. Like, first of all, there's a bunch of school and you work yourself up to that. But then once you get to a certain point, then you start getting like basically internships, residencies, whatever you want to call it. And in the music world, that's usually involving teaching. And, there's a lot of children that need to be like taught. And so usually it's volunteer at first. And the people who make it, I had one of my professors, a doctorate. He got his doctorate at 30. Okay, he's like Dr. Flegg, like he got a doctorate at 30, which is like unheard of in the music education world. Most people will perform for a while, and they'll like teach for a while, and then they'll get their doctorate, like later in life, like 40, 50, like even like 40 is kind of young, like usually like later on in their career. If they're doing education, like usually they'll get the education degree so that they can teach at either a K through 12 school or at college or university, or they'll teach privately and perform, which is what a lot of people will do too. Is they'll get into and depending on where you live, like in the Bay Area, you most likely don't want to get a union. You don't want to join the union because a lot of the jobs here for musicians are not union, which really sucks because it means if you go anywhere else, you can't work, because a lot of places in like Chicago or LA or whatever, require like a union membership. But if you're in a union, you can't do non-union gigs. So if you live in the San Francisco Bay Area, you're like basically can't work unless you're not in a union. Saying you're not talking with your mother, that was a long time ago. I talk to my mom all the time now. I wish people would stop like assuming that things are just always static. I understand your concern, but I invite you to like try to see content creators from a lens of being human, and trying to understand that something that happened 3 years ago is not indicative of who I am today. And you don't understand enough about me or my life, especially if you just saw me in a video, to make those kind of assessments on me. And it's a very unfair judgment. And it's also like, it's just wrong. because you don't know what's going on in my life at all. And there's things that I don't talk about on stream as well. So I just invite you to think a little bit more about that moving forward with content creators, not just myself. Like when you see a content creator, you're not really seeing that person's life. Do you understand? Like, yeah, things are going really well with my mom, and I'm also kind of approaching a time where I can even repair with my older brother, who seems to be willing to have the discussion, of trying to repair instead of just what it was in the past. I'm not getting my hopes up, but it's gonna have to wait till after my surgery. At least the initial part of my recovery, it's gonna be really critical those first 2 weeks. And I cannot get worked up. I just physically won't be able to get worked up. Like I'll be on a liquid diet for 2 weeks. But it's really important that I don't get my blood pressure up or anything. Even today, leading up to this surgery, it's really important that I manage my heart rate and don't get upset and worked up. And that's something I've been working on in 3 years, and I've gotten a lot better at it. I forgot what I was talking about. I was talking about music, but what was I talking about before that? But yeah, that's usually what people do, and I wasn't up for it. I wanted to do it, but I didn't realize that I didn't have the ability to do it. I don't have those social skills, and so I took a step back. Hey, what's up, Omar? I took a step back, right? Like I had to drop out of college, because I was taking 20 units a semester. I was grinding and grinding and grinding and going nowhere. And I didn't want to ruin... I mean, obviously, maybe I could have accidentally made something happen. But I knew that I wasn't going to be successful if I didn't know how to move myself to where I needed to be. And so that's kind of how I got here today, is I needed to take a huge break from my life. Okay. That's not my problem, that's yours. You only saw the few things? Yeah, I mean, truth or the lies? I mean, everything I tell you is the truth, especially the lies. Oh, good doctor. Everything I say is the truth. Even the lies. Especially the lies. Because I think what he meant by that, that was Garrick from DS9 talking to Dr. Bashir. I think what he meant by that is that when people lie to you, they betray more than they intend to. And so if you pay attention to people who lie, you can learn more, sometimes more from them, from their lying, than you can from when they tell you the truth. Especially people who are manipulative. Right? Because when people are manipulative, they will say things that are true, but they'll curate what they tell you. So they'll tell you certain things, but they'll leave out important details. But when people lie, you can see how they look when they're in a lie. And you could see what are they trying to get out of it. And all that. I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. And that's one of the things that I try to learn about social situations. That's my biggest problem. Is since I was 3 or 4 years old, I just did not, I just don't have the capability, or I didn't, and I'm still learning, but I didn't have the capability to understand expectations of me and why people punished me if I didn't meet those expectations. Some of that is not my fault. It's literally people who were abusive to me. That's one thing. But part of that is my inability to recognize that I was being abused. Okay, so a lot of the time, I mean, and then the solution to that I came up with was doubling down on being confident. Doubling down on being no, you're not going to get your way. I am who I am. And I had to do that in order to survive. Because people wanted me to be become something that I couldn't be. They wanted me to I don't know, it's a lot of different things. And a lot of people saw it as me being lazy or me being unwilling to face reality. And when it's the opposite is true, is that I knew from a very early age, I knew from a very young age that I was different. And I didn't know what it was, obviously, because I was a child. But I didn't know that I was different enough that I had different needs. I thought that I was a failure. I thought that because I can't match other people's expectations, there was something wrong with me. And it's not that there's something wrong with me, it's just that I'm built differently. I have a different kind of brain. I can absorb information differently, and in some ways that's really, really good. Like, I can learn things just by reading them and understand them and use them in different contexts that most people are like, huh? What the hell? How'd you get all of that out of one sentence? Like, somebody will say one sentence and I'll like extrapolate like all the reasons why that person said something, or all the potential reasons, really, because I don't know 100%, obviously. But like, somebody can tell me something and I can like connect it to like something that person said in the past and like say like, okay, well that's why that person did this, and that's why that person did this. I can see things from like the big picture. I can see like, okay, this person is saying this now because back here they did all this stuff, and then I bring things back to over here. And I try to work from the problems to solve the problems back here, but they're over here and they're only thinking about what's in front of them. They don't think about all the stuff leading from behind them. I almost think too exclusively in the past, which is where a lot of my problems come from. Hey, what's up? Your band. Nobody is ever going to read what you said. Get fucked. So most people are thinking only in what's in front of them, and they'll like, when they get a problem, then they'll look back. They'll be like, oh, what did I do wrong? Like, oh, I better go back. And then they find something and they get some kind of answer, and then they just like go right back to where they were before, and then the problem happens again. And they don't see like, okay, well, if you don't fix these problems back here, how are you supposed to fix the problems that are up here? And so that's kind of where my mind lives. My mind lives in the hole. It literally puts me into a hole. You see what I did there? Like, I dig myself so far down that I don't know. Sometimes I don't know how to get back out, and then that becomes a problem. And that's kind of maybe because it's none of your business, Cake. Have you ever thought about that? That maybe you don't know me at all, and you don't understand and it's not your business what my personal relationship with my family is. I do share stuff, so I guess some of that's my fault. But I mean, this is my stream, not yours. Do you understand? Like, I'm the one who dictates the conversation, not you. This is not a democracy. Sorry, not sorry. But do you kind of see like where that comes from? Is like how I got here today was because of a lot of environmental factors that were out of my control, and how I responded to those and navigated those. And a lot of that was survival, because I could either buckle under it and just be destroyed, which some people would argue did happen, which I don't, including myself, especially myself. I feel like I'm broken when I'm the opposite. I overcame these things. I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't strong enough. I wouldn't have overcome all the things that came before me if I was not strong enough. So I think it comes down to like knowing what I don't know, and trying to find a way to also recognize the things that I do know, and not dismissing those things that make me who I am and make people, or I guess don't make people, but the things that inspire people when they meet me, because I do inspire people. And I've known this from direct feedback. from people in my life. Like people who've met me, people who've interacted with me, and then are very confused when I'm like having a crisis. Like they get very confused. They're like, why are you upset? Like literally all the evidence should point to you being an amazing person. And then I just tear myself down. And it becomes this cycle of like me showing people how amazing I am, but not recognizing that all the things that I'm doing that people think are amazing, I don't see that way. I see it as like, okay, I'm just trying to survive. Like I need to do this thing. I need to do this thing. Like I'm not thinking about looking awesome. I'm not thinking about people thinking that I'm not thinking about these things like in the way that I think people think I am. I don't know. There's a lot of assumptions going on. Because a lot of the times I figure that obviously people think I'm a loser because I don't have any money. Because I'm not like famous or because I'm not successful. But I am successful, just not in the same way. I'm successful in something that most people never achieve. Do you understand? Like from a very young age, I knew that the thing that people don't have is something that I have, which is this ability to snap myself. Like my ability to look at myself and understand things that most people ignore, and try to understand the whole picture and try to understand how I got here. And a lot of the times people would tell me how I got here. And for a long time I believed them, and it made me extremely depressed. And as depressed as I am, at least I know that I'm depressed, because of my own, I guess, failure, but I guess just my own inability. I guess an inability is not a failure. My own inability to overcome the depression is not and the hurdles in my life is not the same as being a failure. And and also like that's in my control. It's in my court. But for the longest time, I just listened to what other people told me. That people told me like, oh, all you want to do is play video games. You never want to do anything. And the opposite is true. I wanted to do all these things, but people wouldn't let me. And they're like, oh, well, we're not letting you because you're not doing the way we want you to. And I'm like, okay, well, you're telling me to do these things, and then I want to do these things, and I try to do these things, and you deny me the ability to do it. So like, how am I supposed to react to that? When I'm literally like begging and screaming for people to let me in. And then they say, nope, sorry, you're not doing it the way I want you to. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I do it the way you want to? Oh, sorry, it's too late now. I'm like, okay, like what do you want? You want me to work? Then let me work. Okay, like people say, get a job. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I get a job? And they're like, oh, you have to do all this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, why? Why can't I just work? And they're like, oh, but you're not impressing me enough. I'm like, sorry, like, we're not hiring at this time. Literally a for hiring, like we're now hiring sign. Literally doing an interview. If they weren't hiring, why would they do an interview? And it doesn't make any sense. And it never made any sense to me. And so people look at me and they think I'm just some rebel growing up. Like they thought I just wanted to rebel. And I'm like, no, like I want to fit in. But I don't fit in the way they want me to. And I tried to change myself so many times until I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I changing myself? It's never going to be enough for them. So why don't I just be myself? And unfortunately, it hasn't really worked out yet, but I have to look at the big picture because I'm doing everything. I'm doing everything right. And it just doesn't, I don't see the results from it, but the results will come, and they have come. Okay, and like and as much as people don't see it, the people closest in my life, the people directly working with me see it, and that should be enough. Right? Like I don't care what a stranger thinks. I don't care what a random viewer thinks. I don't care what some like person out in the street who just sees me for a split second and then makes a determination over who I am. I don't care what they think because I know who I am, and the people who in my life know who I am. And the problem, though, is that in order to be successful, I have to get those people on board. And that's where the problem has been. Like that's entirely where the problem has been. Is how do I get those people from having a better first impression of me? And sometimes I feel like it's too late, but I don't think it is. I mean, some things are out of my control. Something that most people don't have to think about, and they don't really understand it because they don't have to experience it, is that I literally have to know what somebody's political and religious stances are before I meet them or work with them. And that's a reality because I'm transgender. Okay, that this is not avoidable. And like I said earlier, you have to pinpoint things. You can't ignore them. I can't just be like, oh, you know, I shouldn't be political or whatever. It's like I have to be. It's a survival thing. Because if I'm not going to be able to work with somebody who thinks that being trans is a sin, do you understand? And I know it's very difficult, and maybe people are starting to get on board, and maybe that you know, that's thanks to people like Hasanabi, and Destiny and Vosh, 3 content creators that are, you know, news and political streamers that I feel like are probably not the only ones. There's probably a lot of people I'm not aware of, but they're the only ones that I'm aware of at the top level of those arenas of news and politics, and some of them are even like just top in general, like Hassan. Like these are people who are trying to change the narrative and help people understand that, like, these realities that we have to deal with better than I can. You know, I'm living in it and I experience it, but I can't necessarily move people over because they, you know, this is kind of part of the problem, is that people listen to me talking and they just don't care. And this is like Hassan has said this many times. Like, people just don't care about trans people. They don't care what happens to us. They don't care about our experiences. All they see is their own little world in front of them. And they're like, oh, well, something's different. Well, there must be something wrong with you. And it's like, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I have a different reality than you. I have a different reality than you. And I think so many people, they only see what's in front of them, and then they just harm the people in front of them because they don't see the people on the left and right or behind them. They don't see all the damage they've caused. And it's really difficult communicating this to people because people go on the defensive. And then when you talk about it, they say you're being political. You're being overly political. It's like, I'm not being political. This is just survival. Okay, I cannot work with somebody who fundamentally sees me as a sin. Okay, so I need to know if somebody's a Republican or not. And if they're a Republican, I need to know how much of a Republican they are. Do you understand? Like there's, if somebody wants me to die, I can't work with them. And even though they don't say that, even though they might not even know that they think that, their actions speak otherwise. You know, they want me to be somebody that I can't be. They're saying like, oh, this person's just mentally ill. And it's like, okay, like, what does that even mean? It's like a buzzword now. Like, literally everyone is mentally ill. It's called life. Like, life makes you mentally ill. Otherwise, you wouldn't be alive. Like, if right? Like, it's constant pressure on you. It makes you mentally ill. You know, like, because life is, like, hard. Okay? Like, do you understand? It's not about not being mentally ill. It's about being able to push through it and show up every day. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be listening to what I'm saying. You wouldn't be alive, you know, if you didn't make it here. And so like, you just have to show up and do it. And I hey, what's up, Lily? I'm good. Just kind of talking about some stuff that's been on my mind, as usual. We're talking about a bunch of things. I'm mostly talking about recognizing my strengths, maximizing the things I can control and minimizing the things I can't. I'm mostly talking about, like, basically trying to, like, understand that who I am today is influenced by so many different factors in my past, and how I choose to move forward with that determines, like, I've basically been upgrading my past. Like, right now I have like 3 seconds ago, I had a better past than I did 3 days ago. Because I moved forward. And so every time you kind of just upgrade it, and it might take a different form. It's not that straightforward, because some things get harder, some things get easier, some things stay the same. And I think it's not about just trying to like get this arbitrary mountaintop that you're trying to find. I don't think it's a mountaintop. I think it's a meadow, or like a forest. Your goal isn't to get to the other side of the forest. Your goal is to your goal is whatever you make it. Like a mountain is just a mountain. You don't have to get to the top. You could circle around the mountain. You could look at the mountain and then go get some cake. Like you could talk about the mountain. You don't even have to think about the mountain. The mountain is just there, right? So like what? There's this like obsession with trying to climb the mountain when there's other things than a mountain out there. Like, what about, if you're going to talk about like other kind of like obstacles, like why does everything have to be an obstacle? Right? So it's not about just trying to overcome something. Like, what about just experiencing things? What about just being? What about just saying, hey, like there's things that I'm experiencing every day that are not about overcoming. They're just about being. Like, just listening to someone you care about, talking with a loved one, just sitting there with a morning cup of coffee. You're not trying to drink. I mean, obviously, sometimes you are trying to drink the cup of coffee as fast as possible because you want to get to the thing you want to experience. Like, you want to drink the cup of coffee so that you could go drive to work, or you want to drink the cup of coffee so you can go play video games, or you want to drink a cup of coffee so you can go meet your friends to go rock climbing, to go climb the mountain, right? Do you understand? Like, it's not about the coffee all the time. Sometimes it is about the coffee. Like, you just want to sit down and be like, that's a good cup of coffee. And you want to savor it. But then savoring it too much, it might get cold. And also, like, you might not enjoy it every time. The activity itself is not what brings the happiness. Like, you can't just do the same thing every day and experience it the same. It's not about the thing. It's about you. It's about the you. And so you can bring you literally have to bring you everywhere. So if you tie your results to the thing that you're doing instead of you, then the thing you're doing is going to fall short every single time. I'm gonna get some water. I'll be right back. Yeah, I have to apologize. I deleted that. I do not have the kind of budget to do anything like that. I am actually struggling right now for money. I live on about $500 a month. So I really don't appreciate when I understand the enthusiasm, but I really don't appreciate when people expect me to spend money, because I already know from experience that spending money isn't going to change my situation. I need to find a solution besides spending money. Does that make any sense? Spending money is not going to solve it, because I don't know how to solve it. So if I don't know how to solve it, spending money is just going to waste my money. So my goal is then to figure out what I need to do, not necessarily spending money on it. Because what am I going to spend the money on? Having a graphic artist is not going to help me, because what would I use that for that I'm not already doing? So if what I'm doing is wrong, then, you put sugar on a pile of shit, it's still a pile of shit. Do you understand? So, anyway, part of what I'm doing with myself and trying to build myself up to being the person that I know I can be and the person I know I am and what I deserve out of life. Part of that is figuring out the questions to ask so that I can pursue the right things and not just like grasp for straws, because I've done that my whole life. That's gotten me almost nowhere, barely anywhere. I've basically just been guessing and struggling and just trying to do whatever possible to make other people happy. And that doesn't do anything. Okay, and every time I've made adjustments in my life that were strategic, I've done something like special. Do you understand? So like any time that I've like taken a step back, and almost like, and obviously the past 3.5 years, I have not been sitting still. I have been doing so many different things, and I'm trying to like take account of these things with my therapist and in my journaling and with my case manager, like just like recognizing what I have actually done the past 3.5 years. Cause I haven't just been doing nothing. And also I knew that I needed to transition medically and surgically. Okay, like I knew I needed, and socially, obviously, like for me, like, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I literally changed my name. Okay, like, and I present as female with she, her pronouns. Like, I literally live as a woman. People see me as a woman, except for the weird people on the internet who refuse to see me as a person at all. But I don't care about them. If they're not going to see me as a person, why should I see them as a person, right? So, I know that they're wrong. Like, because in my real life, like, this is kind of like, I guess I was going to say this and then I went on a completely unrelated tangent, but I got back to it. And this is one of my superpowers, by the way. I'll explain it in a second. But like this just happens. And I have no idea how it happens, but it is a superpower. Okay, is one day I was just like walking, and I was walking back, and I was walking across the sidewalk, like on the crosswalk, and there was like a father and his like young daughter. She was probably like 4 or something like that, and they were talking about something. I wasn't paying attention, but then I saw her like point at me and says, "Oh, like her." And I just realized, like, at that moment, I just smiled and walked past because just a little kid, and the dad was probably like, "Oh, don't point at people. Like, she's just minding her business." Like, probably using that. I don't know what parents do with that. But you know what I mean? Like, don't point at people, like that kind of thing. But then I was like realizing, like, like people literally just see me as female because I am. And I'm like that was one of the days where it's like moments where it's like, this isn't a performance. And I know that like early on it feels like a performance because sometimes you have to like put on a mask in order to be the person you already are. If that makes any sense? Because I lived my life a different way my entire life. I lived my life presenting as male, trying to be accepted as male and failing miserably. But that's multifaceted because it's not just trans people that go through this. But like, especially with male culture, that whole thing is a tire fire. Okay. And it affects women too, because men are the ones basically just dominating things because that's kind of part of male culture. I don't want to get too far into that right now. But do you understand? Like I kind of had these like collections of moments that were like, this isn't a performance. This is just me. And I knew this like intelligently or like, academically. I don't know how you want to say it. Like cerebrally, like I knew this but I didn't fully understand it. Because you have to live in order to experience these things. And so like, it's like little moments where just people don't see me as a trans woman. They just see me as a woman. And obviously, like I said, on the internet, people are just fucking weird. They know I'm trans because I've talked about it, and they get in their head all these ideas over what they think a trans person is, instead of just seeing me for who I am, which is just a woman. Okay, and I don't even like defining myself by whether I'm trans. I don't even like defining myself because I'm female. Like, I'm a person, and I don't think that should be the focus. Like, right? Like, I don't feel like that's important to anybody but me. And it's very important to me. But it shouldn't be important to anyone else. But it's all people seem to care about if you're transgender, because they put a hyper microscope on you, and it's just being female already. People care much more about, because I think what happens is they get sexual attraction, and then because they don't know how to control themselves, they try to convince themselves that we're weak, or that we don't deserve attention because we're not hot as they want us to be. Or whatever. They try to convince themselves that so that they can behave themselves instead of actually doing the work to behave themselves. That maybe there's a reason why they're sexualizing everybody. And obviously I had to go through this in order to live my life as a woman, because I had so many toxic beliefs over the person I should have been. Because I had all these ideas over how I was supposed to be based on very toxic males in my life and toxic females. About people telling me the kind of person I should be, instead of just saying, like, who am I? And it's like, once you start asking who you are, you can't close that door. But do you see how, like, I circled back into this conversation that probably nobody listening, if they had been listening from the beginning, like assume that you've been here the whole time, which is usually why I talk to the camera as if somebody's watching the whole time. Even if most people tune out, I don't know, maybe some people watch the whole way through. Hey, what's up, shorts? Eat my shorts. No, don't eat shorts. That's my viewer. But I do interact with my stream as if somebody's watching the whole time, because I'm literally watching the whole time. Okay, I try to think about, like, what would somebody who's watching the entire time interpret this as? Because in some cases, especially in real life, people have to interact with you the whole time. And so, I until here. It sounded like you said I'm still here, but even though you said I until here. I until here. I until here. I until here. Are you trying to convey your accent? I'm sorry if that's offensive. Just hopped in. Sorry if I interrupted anything. You didn't interrupt anything at all. This is a stream. Literally everything is acceptable except for being a weird champ. Okay, like, literally, don't be weird. Don't be bigoted. And my definition of weird is very lenient. Okay, it's just like don't be like a psychotic person. like don't be bigoted. Don't be a psycho. Okay. But I've had this explained to me. So the person who would literally, like, the hypothetical person who's listening to me the whole time I'm talking would not even pick up on this until I just, like, whoa, like, where'd that come from? That we'll be talking about something that's, like, completely different, but then I'll circle back to a point that I made, like, an hour ago. Or, like, maybe, like, a couple minutes ago. Like, it depends. Not, like, the time doesn't matter. Like, I'll talk about a whole bunch of different stuff, but then I'll bring it back. And I've noticed this, and sometimes I use it to my advantage, maybe sometimes to my disadvantage. But I noticed this a long time ago. That, like, that's not normal. Okay? Like, most people only see what's in front of them with blinders on. And anytime you try to change, like, hey, do you remember that thing we talked about last week? They're like, huh, what were we talking about? And then you kind of have to, like, remind them a bit. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I kind of remember that. I don't know if they actually don't remember it or if they're just saying that they don't. Like, I honestly, like, this is a social blindness thing. I just listen to people and try to take their word for it. And sometimes people can manipulate me with that, but I think the alternative is being paranoid. And I hate being paranoid. It happens anyway. But the thing is that like I'll be talking to someone and I'll just say things that literally they have no idea what I'm talking about, except they do. Like if I kind of like bring them along with me, and then they'll start to see it, which is kind of the problem, is because most people will just like scratch their head and leave. That's kind of the problem I'm trying to solve. I'm trying to get them to go along the ride with me, because I just keep going. I just keep swimming. I'm a fish swimming. I'm just keep swimming. But most people are like bottom feeders. I don't want to say it that way. I mean, it is kind of that way. Nothing wrong with bottom feeders. They are who they are. But most people just pay attention to like, oh, I need to eat this. I need to eat this. And then they're like, oh, hey, like, let's talk. And then they're like, oh, I need to get back to eating. And I'm like, okay, you just ignored me. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just keep swimming until I meet someone who's like, hey, like, I think I know where I think I know, and this is me, I think I know where we can find some better food. And they're like, but I already have food. And I'm like, yeah, but like, do you want to just keep staying there when it's like really harmful? And they're like, yeah, but I don't, it might be, it's too scary. And I'm like, okay, well, do you want to go with me? Like, if not, we could just come back here. And they're like, oh, okay. And then we like go along together. That's what happens with the people who actually are with me in my life. And sometimes I worry that I've taken them have I been steering them into hell? Like, have I been steering them in the wrong direction? But I can't have those doubts. I cannot have those doubts, because I know who I am. I know the value I have. And I know the value I have based on people literally coming into my life and trying to get me to see who I really am. Trying to get me to see the beauty that I am. But I've had it explained to me before, that thing that I talked about, if you remember. The thing I talked about where I bring it back, I've had that explained to me before, with a woman I was friends with, that we were trying to make it a little bit more, but it didn't really work out, and that's okay, because I like having friends. But there was a woman I was friends with, and we were talking about stuff, and she said, like what it's like talking to you. And she said, it's like, and I was like, oh, it's not bad, isn't it? She's like, not really bad. It's just like, it's intense. But and like, I don't know if that's good or bad. I think it just is what it is. But she said, it's like you're driving on the freeway, and every now and then, like, I just change lanes, and we don't even know why we're changing lanes, but but like later on, like, we're going on that lane and everything's like, okay, cool, we're on this lane. And then I'll bring it back to the other lane. And it's kind of like a shock, but then you realize why I did it. Like, oh, it's because of like, you had to avoid that crash that we saw earlier, or something like that. Or you saw it up ahead. Yeah, she put it in a really good way. And I'm like, oh shit, like that could be disorienting for people. That I just like sometimes I take an exit, but then it's like we do stuff in town and then I get right back on the freeway. Even though people thought that we were just going to stay in town. People thought that we're just going to stay in this lane because that's what they're used to. They're used to people forcing them into a lane. And I'm just kind of saying this right now. I feel like that's what I can get out of that. That's the lesson I can learn from that. I try to look for lessons, which is why I did really good academically, at least early on, because at some point I just didn't want to deal with the whole academic stuff. But why I did really well in school was because I always looked for the lesson. And it was a survival thing, because in order to, I had to impress the teachers. And the teachers wanted me to get good scores on tests. And I couldn't do well in the behavior department because I'm different. I didn't understand that I needed to not talk. I needed to not engage with people. I didn't understand when I was in elementary school and such. And then later on, I just gave up and I just slept in class. I did the opposite. And then I failed because of that. And that's why I dropped out, because I just missed school to play video games. And when I was there, I would put my head down and sleep because I was like, what's the point? I'm like, what's the point of even trying to engage? because I tried engaging with people. I tried engaging with teachers, and I got nothing but pushback my whole entire life. And if I, people say that I'm insane, but if I was insane, I would have kept doing that, knowing that it would fail. Okay, so I knew it wasn't going to work, and so I stopped. But then stopping has repercussions because I dropped out of high school. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any kind of resources except for people telling me I'm a failure. But recognizing that it is disorienting, that when people are in the car with me, I need to kind of like maybe warn them a little bit before I signal. I need a signal first, which I wasn't really signaling. And if I did, it would be like I'd signal like right when I did it because I calculated, well, it's safe to do it now, so I'm just going to do it. But most people need that signal. They need that warm up. They need the well, we're going to go take a left turn. Are you ready for it? I mean, we're going to do a merge into the left lane. Are you ready? Are you ready? I hope you're ready. Do you have your seatbelt on? Well, here we go. I'm doing it now. Let me turn the left signal on. Okay, we're doing it now. Okay, here's me doing it. Okay, and that was so exhausting for me. Do you understand? That is so exhausting. It is to the point of extreme mental illness to force myself to do that. Because I'm like, why? Why didn't they just listen to me before and go along the ride with me? Because we've already worked together before. Why do I have to do it again? And then repeat it again, and then repeat it again, when I've already, why do I have to keep repeating myself? And I didn't understand that most people need repeating. Not because they're stupid, but because they don't think the way I do. It's not that I'm smarter than them. And for the longest time in school, I just thought I was smarter than everybody. I was like, fuck, everyone's dumb but me. But what it was is that I just think differently. Because my brain is wired differently. Because I am autistic. And obviously I get that now after, 3.5 years of therapy, working and getting a diagnosis with my multiple doctors and such. That took a very long time to actually get into paper, with lots and lots of discussions and analysis from qualified professionals, based on a lifetime and based on our direct experiences with those doctors. Literally, I would have meltdowns in the office because I was frustrated. And part of me even thought that I was performing, that I needed them to see it. But I don't think that's the case. I think that actually is what is part of it. That I'm literally feel like I have to perform a certain way so that people won't get the wrong idea. And in a lot of ways, that's true. Because I had to learn how to put a mask on when I was, a lot of autistic people do. But the mask I put on was one that destroyed my life, unfortunately. It was one that led me to dropping out of high school. It was one that led me to being socially isolated. Even though I tried to put on the right mask. I was like, okay, let's try this mask. Let's try this mask. Let's try this mask. None of them worked. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Why the fuck am I wearing a mask? Why don't I just work with the one I got? And so it's like, I took the mask off at a certain point. I don't know exactly when. But at some point I just took the mask off. And I'm like, yeah, people are going to have a hard time dealing with it, but they're already having a hard time dealing with the other ones, and those ones don't work for me. So why would I continue using things that don't work instead of just working with what I already have? If it's going to fail, I may as well fail with the one that's already here. Right? And I don't know. Sometimes I just don't understand the impact I have on people, whether it's good or bad. And it's like a double-edged sword. That's kind of who I am. Like in a lot of ways, I'm the shining, beautiful light. But in a lot of ways, that light can be blinding. Oh. Yeah, not sure what happened there. That was an hour and 20 minutes. I had no idea that was an hour and 20 minutes. Do you understand? I thought that was like 10 minutes. That was an hour and 20 minutes that I've been talking. Do you understand? Do you understand what my problem I'm dealing with? That I could just go on for like 3 or 4 or 6 hours like that? So yeah, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time. Make sure to give me a follow if you're new here. Make sure to give me a like and a subscribe, and hit that bell notification if you want to see next time I make a video or go live. And I hope that you guys think about what I said today, and hopefully it helps you. Anyway,